So, what do ghrelin, cortisol, insulin, and female sex hormones all have in common? In this episode, you are going to discover the fascinating relationship between your emotions, hormones, and eating patterns, and how to understand this connection can open the door to true healing and food freedom. We are interviewing Amber Romaniuk, and she is an emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert with 12 years of experience helping high achieving women create a level of body confidence, intuition, and optimal health through powerful mindset healing, self care, and overcoming self sabotage with food. She personally overcame a long battle with emotional eating, including gaining and losing over 1,000 pounds, spending more than $50,000 on binge foods and dedicating 5 years to restoring her hormones and digestion. And she has intimately dismantled the limiting beliefs and patterns that once kept her stuck. So today, she empowers others to experience life changing breakthroughs and achieve what she calls body freedom, the confidence, health, and vitality to create amazing lives. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk all about hormones and how that might be affecting emotional eating, and it's going to be really good. Let's get to it. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, well, where should we start as far as hormones go in terms of what hormones are affecting our emotional eating patterns. If someone, or even if someone is like, I don't know that I have emotional eating. I don't know if it's emotion based because that was me. I had an
Mm,
overeating problem. I
mm,
resonated with that. But
mhm.
because it was so effective at numbing my emotions, I didn't realize that I had an emotional eating problem. I was like,
Yeah.
no, I just need more willpower. It's not emotional eating, it's just overeating.
Yeah.
So, do you want to speak to that a little bit and how hormones come into play?
100%. Yeah. And so I think one of the biggest things to realize is that we're not educated properly about hormones, hormone function. Unfortunately, the normal ranges for testing in Western medicine in North America, even in actually Europe, Australia, are too big. There's much smaller ranges that are actually normal, more functional ranges that a lot are not taught about. And so even if you go get your labs done or you take that big master list and you're like, my doctor did it or the person I'm working with did it, when they give it back to you and like, yeah, everything's fine. You're fine. It's just in your head, it's just stress. You need to sleep more or whatever. It can feel so disempowering because your intuition and your body are like, no, there's something going on and I'm having the symptoms. And so I just like to address that right off the bat to validate the listeners that there are people out there that it can help you review your hormone tests and properly help you identify what's going on because a lot of imbalances are going on in the normal ranges, including low progesterone, low estrogen, hypothyroid, which is sluggish, underactive thyroid. Even here in Canada, the range for cortisol is like up to 650 now. And it used to be like 400. And so it's like, same with TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, zero point 0.7 to 3.50. Now it's 6.50.
Mhm.
And even some women that are like out of these normal ranges and it's flagging and no one's still looking at it. So first you need to make sure you're working with someone who's going to give you the proper attention and be attentive to your results. From here, I think it's important to understand that if you're in a heightened state of stress, there's a domino and it throws everything off so much more easily. And I see so many women with high cortisol, that stress hormone. And what we have to understand is as soon as you have high cortisol for more than a few weeks or months, you have increased appetite levels. So when your cortisol is high, we actually produce too much ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone that gives us a hunger signal. And so it's so much easier to want to overeat, not just because you're like unconsciously, this is a coping mechanism. I don't feel safe. I'm going to numb out, but also because you actually have a stronger desire to keep eating and you don't feel satiated. And when we have high cortisol, we also have a more sluggish response producing leptin, which is your fullness hormone. So those become skewed. Also with cortisol, because you feel spread too thin, you feel more anxiety potentially, you feel more on alert. It's very much harder to get grounded and feel more connect with yourself, have discernment, like common sense, or like be proactive and go, I've got solutions. There's things I can do in this stress experience, whatever I'm going through. And instead, what ends up happening when we have a high cortisol or even low cortisol, we're in more of a burnout. Either way, your nervous system is dysregulated. And if your nervous system is dysregulated, you don't really feel safe in your body and you can't access your confidence and your intuition and your innate abilities to be attuned with your body. And if you can't or you don't know how to listen to your body, what's going to happen? Well, your brain senses stress as a threat. And so your brain is going to be like, go to what is comfortable. So if food is what's comfortable for you, emotional eating, mindless shopping, alcohol, over exercising, under eating, buying stuff online that you don't need, right? Causing arguments, whatever, like you're going to revert to what is comfortable, even if it's causing you suffering. And that's often, I find, one of the biggest blocks in the way of women like really starting to heal their relationship with food or really address the roots of why do you have high cortisol? Because a lot of it is people pleasing, perfection, being overbooked, binging and restriction, all that kind of stuff, is we're afraid to get uncomfortable because the brain, the amygdala in the brain, which senses stress and discomfort as a threat to our survival, is like, no, go to your comfort zone. This is what's comfortable. So this is where we have to like kind of rewire our what is safe and familiar. And as you flip that switch, as you heal this stuff and you get your cortisol levels down, it will actually support you in being more willing to go into some discomfort to get where you want to go. You'll have more ability to critically think when you're triggered to emotionally eat or binge. And instead of just going to food right away, you may even catch yourself mid emotional eating, but you'll be able to catch your trigger and be willing to work through it because you actually feel you have some form of capacity rather than just feeling so stressed or so anxiety or ending up in a panic attack, right? Because that does happen to some of my clients. So I do feel we need some level of capacity to be able to cope. But if your cortisol's through the roof, it's honestly gonna feel so hard to have any capacity to cope. So, like, even just with cortisol, which pretty much every woman I work with has had high cortisol, I had the highest I have ever seen to this day in my practice. I don't even know how I survived, to be honest, because I didn't even think the cortisol could get, like I said earlier, the range, like optimal is like 375 in Canada. I was 2000. I don't even know how my body was like still functioning at all, to be honest. And I just like to share my personal experience because I get it. It's not fun when your system is that dysregulated. Also, I think another thing that really upsets women about when your cortisol gets high, another symptom is you gain weight in your abdomen more easily. And if we're feeling unworthy, we don't like our bodies, right? We're having that body shame. What do? We panic. We go into that stress response again. What's comfortable? Overexercise, undereat, diet, quick fix, like what, right? And all of that just stresses your system out more and spikes the cortisol higher. And then when you gain more weight and you get more frustrated, it just keeps fueling that vicious cycle. But again, as we've been talking about, these hormones, especially cortisol, and really impact your brain and your stress centers of the brain. And that's why we need to like support cortisol and give you some capacity to cope so you can be willing to want to like slow down and build balance and learn how to trust your body. So to me, like with cortisol, those are some of the things that will fuel emotional eating, overeating, binge eating with the weight gain or the stress and the increased appetite level. Because we just to get to this point where I'm like, I'm overwhelmed and I don't want to feel anything. So let's just shove it down for a little while with food. So that's cortisol. I can keep going, but I just want to pause for a moment.
Yeah, I think it's really important for our listeners to see that it's not just that you don't have like enough willpower or, you know, there's literal hormones that are being impacted by cortisol as like the primary
Mhm.
one. It's impacting ghrelin and it's impacting leptin.
Yeah.
And that is huge because when you said that there's like a slower leptin release,
Mhm.
I see that so often where women, and this happened for me from the time I was 10 years old, I didn't know when I was hungry or full.
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I was like, how are you, as a teenager, I like heard about people being like, tuning into your body and being able to tell when you're hungry or full. I had absolutely no idea whether I was hungry or full until I was way too full. And then
Yeah.
I was like, well, obviously I'm stuffed and I'm super uncomfortable now. But so just know that this stuff is real physical stuff that's happening
Yeah.
in your body. It's not just all in your head.
100%. And I'm glad that you bring that up because, when you're tired and you're brain fogged and you don't have any capacity, the easier choice just feels like I'm going to go through the drive through. I'm going to just eat this. I just don't care. And that is part of it is those physical hormone imbalances are fueling those behaviors and those emotions. And it is not about willpower at all. It has nothing to do with willpower. And I think that's a like a fad that we've been like sold by the weight loss and diet industry because obviously they want to keep you as a lifetime customer. That's how they make trillions of dollars every year. And the story that women keep telling themselves, if I could just try harder on my diet, if I could just have more willpower, and it's like, no, like let's actually look at the roots. As I always say, your emotional and binge eating triggers are your teachers. They're truly trying to show you where you're out of alignment. And we need to start bringing hormone imbalances into the conversation of binge and emotional eating because I think that's one of the reasons why so many women keep struggling is because, yes, we need to do a really good job honoring and looking at the emotional mindset, behavioral, mental, all those things. That's extremely important. But then the hormones are getting missed. The ghrelin and leptin is getting missed. The blood sugar, the candida overgrowth can give you bigger cravings and literally become a binge eating trigger. So we need to bring that together. And then we need to talk about energetics and being an empath. And we need to talk about our environment and like all these things that are actually multi-layered in this healing journey.
I think
So,
about it as we're standing downstream as a healthcare professional and we're pulling these people out of the water. But the question is if we go up to the source, if we go upstream, why are they falling in or jumping into the water to begin with? And so you're kind of emphasizing the importance of what is the root of the root of the root. And to make sure I'm tracking is let's say that somebody is under stress. Humans experience stress. Stress is important, stress is good, but unchecked stress can be a problem. And so someone may have high cortisol. High cortisol is like we got to run from the tiger. And so we need energy. So it breaks down glycogen from storage into glucose. Your ghrelin goes up. You're hungry. You pulling calories. Your leptin goes down. So you don't get full. Your blood sugar's rising. So now our insulin is going up to try to balance the blood sugar. But high cortisol will suppress our estrogen. It'll suppress our testosterone because we're too stressed to
mhm,
reproduce. And then we get a conversion of active thyroid, free thyroid, into an inactive reverse thyroid. So now we feel sluggish, tired, our hair's falling out, our skin
mhm,
is dry, we're constipated. Then the body's like, oh my gosh, we have so much cortisol. I'm going to convert it into cortisone inactive. So
mhm,
then we feel tired, our blood sugars are crashing. We all think we have dysautonomias. Now, cortisol suppressing inflammation, innocent bystanders come in, they create dysbiosis in the gut, leaky brain, depression, anxiety, neuroinflammation, and on and on and
yeah,
on.
100%.
Wow. So,
Yeah, and then women are picking themselves apart because they can't figure out how to stop binge and emotional eating. It's so complex. It's not
yeah.
your fault. We have not been educated or taught how this domino effect impacts everything, right? So,
So a woman comes in, she's sitting in front of you, and this is her story, what we just sort of introduced together. And we'll use this high cortisol, since we talked about cortisols, perhaps our inroad. Maybe she's a new
mhm,
mom, maybe she's got a stressful job, maybe she has trauma, maybe she's
yeah.
been exposed to mold in the house, whatever it is. What's the first step?
Yeah, so I think the first step in my case, if she's like, I'm emotionally eating and I'm self-sabotaging with food, is okay, well, we want to start helping you understand what is actually triggering you to emotionally eat or binge. What is your actual set of triggers? Because until we know our triggers, we have no awareness and why we're doing what we're doing. And so that's one of the first things we start looking at is let's figure out everything that's triggering you because you can probably start to catch and move away from some of those easier triggers. And then we can start doing things like supporting your blood sugar, do hormone testing, start bringing cortisol down, but we can help give her reassurance that it's not your fault, you're not crazy. Thank you for being open and sharing about this. You are so supported here, and we're going to take this one step at a time. I think the second thing that's extremely important to start getting them to build awareness around is the physical versus emotional hunger, because 90% of the time they're eating for emotional hunger and they don't realize it, and or because they're not having a hunger signal, because I see this so much as well, where they've been told to, they're like, I need to lose weight. I'm going to fast. I'm going to skip half my meals, or because they binge the night before, they're not hungry in the morning, or they're skipping breakfast because they want to, make up for the overconsumption the night before. And so then what we start doing is suppressing our metabolism. Diets, we suppress our metabolism in as little as 4 days if we're in too much of a calorie deficit. So then our thyroid can be inhibited. We're suppressing our body's ability to properly communicate and produce ghrelin to make us hungry. And then we think, and it's like mainstream education, well, if you're not hungry, don't eat. And it's like, no, that is one of the worst things that we can do because it shuts all this off even more, can slow down the metabolism even more. And then you are setting yourself up for later day binge eating and emotional eating. So that's why I always say the exception is, well, physical hunger. You get a hunger signal, your stomach is growling, your blood sugar is crashing because you waited too long to eat, right? You're dizzy, faint, lightheaded, shaky, hangry. You look at the clock, you realize you haven't eaten in a few hours, and then they say, "Well, I'm not hungry, so I shouldn't eat." I say, "No, that means there's something going on internally that we have to investigate what that is to help you turn your hunger back on, stoke your metabolism, and get that firing again." And within days or weeks, they're getting a hunger signal back. But again, because they were told, "Oh, yeah, that's convenient," just like, "Oh, it's convenient. You don't have a period. That's good for you. Just enjoy that for as long as you can." Like, we need the proper education because we've been misled with a lot of this stuff. So we just assume that it's fine. But then we keep getting more results that we don't like. So the physical, emotional hunger conversation is very important. And then everything else is emotional hunger, which I would tie in like hormone imbalances because they're fueling an emotional eating behavior. But like we said earlier, there's like physical, mental, emotional, energetic, environmental triggers. So those are the first things that we would look at from the emotional eating standpoint. And then I help them with a tool to start getting them to catch triggers and like rewire the brain to actually look at what's going on first before they go to food. And that really helps them see a lot of progress. Then we start working on their hormones as well. Right away, we do testing because we want to help support the nervous system. Start getting the cortisol down. A lot of women have really low progesterone. I also see a lot of estrogen dominance because of all the processed food, the toxic chemicals that we're innocently putting on our body. They're not detoxifying properly. They have a lot of candida. So, we start working on those things as well in the gut and blood sugar, just so that there's like a kind of a gentle balance. So, yeah, I'm over answering, but that's where we kind of start and
Yeah,
work
can you
toward.
speak a little bit more to the progesterone and estrogen? Because I think that this is going to be something that a lot of women resonate with. Either they
Hmm.
know it because they've done testing or they suspect that they might have
Yeah.
estrogen dominance or not enough estrogen or not enough
Hmm.
progesterone, all of the things.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's often low progesterone. I've never had someone with high unless they've overdosed on their bioidenticals, which I've yet to see. So I deem progesterone the feminine hormone. I know it's a reproductive hormone, but I call it the feminine hormone because if you're overdoing it, you're not going to have enough progesterone because your body is stressed, right? So that's why I deem it the feminine hormone. We really need some form of balance and some form of self-honoring to see our body be able to produce enough of it. Of course, as we get into our perimenopause and menopause, that changes, but it is the feminine hormone, in my opinion. So when with low progesterone, we need enough progesterone to combat inflammation. So I see women dealing with more colds and flus. They're puffy, they're getting like skin reactions and all kinds of things like that. Their sex drive is low. One of the biggest troublesome symptoms, they're having trouble staying asleep. They have insomnia. They're awake for several hours through the night, usually in the window of 1 to 4 a.m. It is not fun. I've had low progesterone and I can tell you it is not fun at all. And it really impacts your sleep, which then impacts, it makes you more hungry the next day and your mood and everything. It is off. We need enough. This is one of the most mind blowing pieces when I learned about this, and it's tied to emotional and binge eating. You need enough progesterone to help your body produce and have your neurotransmitters communicate properly. And so we need progesterone is the calming hormone as well. It's the cooling hormone as well. So it's like all these other benefits. And so when your progesterone's low, you have a higher likelihood of low serotonin. And that is one of your mood stabilizing neurotransmitters that helps you feel stable, happy, content, joy, right? And when you're in that state and you're feeling in a really good stability, you're far less likely to want to self-sabotage the food and chase a quick fix dopamine high or any kind of quick fix dopamine high or external reward because you're feeling grounded, content in your power, I like to call it. So when women have low serotonin, also low dopamine, we need enough progesterone to help with that production and communication. We end up feeling low. We can feel anxiety, depressed. We actually don't feel safe in our bodies Our nervous system can't regulate properly if we don't have enough progesterone. So we feel very on edge. It's hard to process things. We feel more critical of ourselves and others when our progesterone is low. And we're more prone to want to people please and chase validation from others because we actually need progesterone to help with communication with oxytocin that the brain produces, which is the connection neurotransmitter. So if we have low progesterone and our oxytocin isn't firing properly or is depleted, you're going to want validation from others. You are going to feel like that attached relationship style, which you're in your luteal phase, phase 4 of your cycle, and everything's feeling good until like day, you're 5, 6 days. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, does my partner still love me? Like, let me do this for him. And like, you will literally feel that if your progesterone is low. Like, what happened to me the other day? Everything felt fine. And today I'm like waking up and freaking out over something that isn't really happening, right?
Yeah, while
Um,
also judging the hell out of the other person at the same time.
Exactly. You become so much more critical when you have low progesterone, and that's because of these neurotransmitter imbalances. And we also, when our oxytocin is low because of this, and I went through this for a few weeks, it wasn't depression, but it was like I felt nothing. I felt disconnected from everything. I felt flatlined. I was like meh to everything. So many good things are happening. I'm like meh, whatever. Like I just feel so disconnected. So that's why this progesterone and oxytocin are so important because it's how we feel connection to self and others. And that is just, I'm just like, how many women are like questioning leaving their relationship because they have low progesterone and there's nothing wrong, but they like don't know, or maybe they're like being hard on themselves because they think there's something wrong because they feel disconnected. And then that's triggering them to want to binge and emotionally eat. And we also need it for GABA, and GABA helps with sleep. It helps again with mood stability. And when GABA is low, we can crave more sugar. And so with low progesterone can come more sugar cravings, more processed carb cravings, and desire for chasing those quick fix dopamine highs. So the mood piece of low progesterone to me is like so mind blowing. I know, yes, also we can have troubles getting pregnant and staying pregnant. We can miscarry, irregular cycles, shorter periods, skip cycles, heavy periods. But the mood piece is something I just feel like, they say, oh, you're moody. Yeah, it's because your hormones are off. It's like, no, let's actually literally talk about what you're experiencing so that you can be validated and not be almost like judged that you're moody. Like figure out your hormones. Like it's not your fault.
You're so hormonal. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to stop with that kind of, jargon, in my opinion, because low progesterone is no joke. And then you feel brain fogged and you feel tired. And it just, again, we've talked about earlier, fatigue and brain fog that I don't care. I want to eat whatever I want. I'm tired of increased appetite levels. It really starts to be this vicious cycle of emotional eating. And then, of course, with emotional eating comes inflammation. Maybe you're not ovulating or your egg quality isn't good and you're not going to produce enough progesterone. And once you get into your perimenopause, menopause, and you're starting to shift that production of, your hormones to your adrenals. If your adrenals are stressed, even without being in perimenopause or menopause, if your adrenals are stressed, like Dr. Nicole said earlier, you're not going to be producing enough of your estrogen and testosterone. So it just starts to amplify that vicious cycle. And with low estrogen, I feel like it's part of that, the mood thing, like low mood, you feel depressed, anxiety. A lot of it as well is you, I find you just feel tight and dry. I don't know. It's just because estrogen is like the moisturizing hormone. It helps with our skin and hair, but also, it's interesting witnessing clients who have been experiencing like vertigo and tinnitus and dizziness because their levels are low and we need enough of that for fluid balance. It's just like so reassuring and freeing for them when they realize it's part of it's their hormones and they start working on that and then they feel a lot better. Obviously, reproductive again. But the mood piece and some of these unexpected symptoms like pain during sex and vaginal dryness, like how come we're not talking about this more? And I know there's a lot of shame. Women don't want to talk about it. And it's like, no, we got to talk about it. You deserve to feel better and not suffer through these symptoms. With dominance, you feel puffy, you feel warm, you feel bloated, you have breast tenderness, like, maybe even like 2 or 3 weeks out of your whole cycle, and they're painful and they're swollen, and you gain weight so easy when you have estrogen dominance. And part of it is weight, part of it is the inflammation retention. But I find those are some of the most common symptoms. You have heavier periods, there's more clotting, you have more cramping. I went through really bad estrogen dominance when I was healing my relationship with food. And it was just like, you're sweating all day and you're sweating at night. And I'm like, I'm 24. Why am I'm not menopausal, right? Like, what is going on, right? So this is why it's so important to get your hormones tested to see is it low, because you can have night sweats and hot flashes when your estrogen is low, but you can also be very sweaty when it's high, and at night as well. So those are some of the common symptoms that I see. And of course, if we're unhappy with our body and we're thinking our body's out to get us, because that's a mentality a lot of women carry when they're having symptoms or gaining weight, that all can become an emotional eating trigger. My body's out to get me. I don't care today. I've been trying so hard. Nothing's working. I'm going to go reward myself.
And then I'll start tomorrow.
Hmm. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
next week. Yeah.
Yeah. New year.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your new me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've touched on how, and I feel like so many of us were our own healers, and, pain is where we come out of in order to create progress. And so you've gone through this yourself. You mentioned that you've had these experiences with imbalances in progesterone. Would you mind actually kind of talking us through that?
Hmm.
How you went from these imbalances hormonally and perhaps in your eating habits, and then figuring out, well, what's going on and how do I fix it? Do you mind
Yeah.
sharing that?
100%. Yeah. So for me, even though I was exhausted and anxiety and fatigued, it was after I'd stopped binge eating, I gained 80 pounds. And that really was like, why did that happen? Like, I'm 25 years old. I've just started my business. Yes, I'm not going to lie. I was kind of hustling in the beginning to get things going so that I could get into, making money and helping people and having it be my full-time gig. However, it just seemed like it came on so fast. And I was really working on at that time, trying to not judge myself for it and love what was, because I knew already fighting with my body's not going to get me anywhere I wanted to go. So I'd already knew that I had high cortisol. So I was trying to focus on getting my cortisol down, but I had a limiting belief that I need to exercise 5 days a week in the morning, got to do like at least 30 minutes of cardio. Otherwise, I'll gain weight and I need to maintain my weight. So the limiting belief was if I slow down my movement or stop movement for a while, I'm going to gain weight. And I don't want that to happen because I'm already gaining weight. And so I'm trying to get my cortisol down. I'm taking maca. And this was like before I knew anything about hormones, right? I'm just kind of like getting my tests done through a naturopath and like didn't know anything. And so I'm taking maca and some other things to help with my cortisol. And this is important because I didn't know maca also pushes estrogen up. So I'm taking maca like powder 2 or 3 times a day. I'm taking a capsule. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great for my cortisol. I'm taking like ashwagandha and other things that are good for my adrenals. I also was hypothyroid. So I had, my TSH was too high, my T3 and T4 were too low. And so I started desiccated thyroid, which was a game changer. It really helped with all of that. But still my cortisol's high. And then my period was still disappearing. I'm puffy. I'm gaining weight. What is going on? So I actually did further testing and discovered that my DHEA was too low. My progesterone was too low. My estrogen was 10 times higher than it should have been. And obviously my insulin was through the roof because high estrogen often fuels excess insulin. So when I learned all of this, I was like, wow, okay, I'm sleeping good. Shockingly, actually, I'm sleeping good. I'm eating really well. I'm in a good self care practice. I'm not using food to cope anymore. Why am I still gaining weight? What is the root stressor? And I'm like, it's the exercise. I'm going to have to deal with that. That's so uncomfortable. What happens if I stop and I keep gaining weight? But I was like, you've got to try. So I had to crush that limiting belief and slow down. And so it's ironic because I started my business and I practiced out of a gym and I was like, this is embarrassing. Like, what if they judge me because I'm not coming to my morning workouts anymore? But I was like, whatever, this is like, I got to heal this. And I tried to like share with them a bit about what I was doing. Anyway, so stopping the working out and focusing on gentle yoga, stretching, mindful walking, and like if I had energy, which I didn't at the time, was a game changer. I focused on sleep, naps, resting, nourishment, self-care, all those things. And then I got on the proper detoxification support to start getting my estrogen down, getting my progesterone up. The weight fell off. The weight
Mm.
fell off and I was shocked. I was like, what? I thought you need to exercise to lose weight. No, actually, weight is a protective mechanism. And if you feel safe and your body feels safe and your hormones are in somewhat of a state of balance, you're not going to gain weight and retain a bunch of water. So that was really cool to heal that. And then it was a lot of anti-inflammatory I was just mindful of how often I was eating out because a lot of restaurant food has a lot of seed oils, inflammation, and I found that that was also stressing on my system. And I also pulled back on how many estrogen-rich foods I was eating because I was doing multiple a day because again, I didn't know at the time I had high estrogen. I'm like peas, beets, sweet potatoes, maca, like yams, flax seeds because you're like it's all good for female hormones. So I'm gonna just take all of it, not knowing, right? This is before I got any education on actually helping other women with hormones, but I was the guinea pig. So I stopped my maca. I brought in other adrenal support, and then I was doing like yam cream and different things like that to help bring up my progesterone, progesterone-rich foods. But truly, the detoxification, getting rid of all my toxic skincare, stopping using plastic, and this was over time, bringing in a lymphatic drainage routine, that was all so beneficial in helping really balance my hormones. But quitting the gym at the time was like the best decision I ever made because
Mhm.
that really, my cortisol came down so much more efficiently. And then all the other stuff started to balance more efficiently. So that was the big, and then it's like I learned to love myself at that heaviest weight. And it's like as soon as I fully accepted and surrendered, it's like, pff, I'm like, wow, now everything I just bought is super loose, right? But it no longer was about weight loss. It was about really healing and feeling optimal.
Mm. I want to validate the weight piece because I hear this so much. And I have a patient that's coming to mind. She was just gaining weight. She started experiencing lymphedema, so
Mm,
she couldn't get her shoes and sandals on. And she was doing Pilates every day and exercising every day and going on runs and walks. And her ankles just got more swollen, her feet got swollen. And I was like, what is getting in the way of her getting better? And so finally we talked about perhaps you need to cut back on the exercise. And she's like, no, exercise is going to help me lose weight. It's going to help me be more toned and fit. And I said, I think you might be overdoing it because it can cause your body to produce stress hormones so that you can continue running from the tiger.
hmm
And that was the thing. That's what
hmm
changed it for her. And so then I was like, wow, this is so interesting. And I had a
Mhm.
man who's a friend of mine. He came into my office and he's like, I am so wired and tired and I'm doing jujitsu every single day and I'm working out and I still feel like garbage and I can't sleep and I just feel horrible. And I was like, I think you need to cut back on jujitsu. I
hmm
think you're overdoing it.
Yeah.
And so he had testosterone tested with his doctor and it was low. His free
Yeah.
testosterone was low. And when he cut back by 75% on his exercise, his testosterone normalized. So I
Yeah.
think that you're really emphasizing something that's super important is it's all about listening to the body, letting your symptoms be your teachers, and maybe for some people, less is more, and doing more of that gentle stretching. Hadley, I feel like your brain must be thinking about what the dosha is.
Oh,
And
totally. 100%. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if they're in a pitta state and then they're
Yeah.
all doing like hot yoga or CrossFit, that's going to feed into an imbalance that
Mm,
is going to make them worse. So, old
totally.
traditional medicine has already told us this for 1,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Amber, literally your story, I'm just over here like nodding so vigorously because it's exactly the same as my story. Like it's
Yeah.
Really?
wild. Yes. Like and what I do with my clients is before we focus on even food psychology, all of the things, before we even get to that, we focus on sleep.
hmm
Sleep is the most important thing. Was, you know, I was very much on the same boat where like I forced myself to exercise. I hated
hmm
exercise. I hated it for so long. Like from, the time I started exercising consistently, which was probably like 15 years old and into college, I hated it so much, but I would force myself to because I was like, this is the only way that I'm gonna
Yep.
be able to have the body that I want to have. And and I was pretty disciplined about it. Like I did it. But yeah, I would wake up in the morning and do that. I would skimp on sleep so that I could do that, thinking that that was more important. And so
hmm
I just want to really reiterate this that like Well, first of all, that sleep is the number one thing that we need to do
Hmm.
first. If you've got, issues with sleeping, I was the same way where I didn't have an issue with sleeping. I was sleeping
Hmm.
really well, but I would force myself to get up early,
Same.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and so that piece, and then also I think it's so important to address the cardio obsession.
Yeah.
And I think that has shifted a little bit, which is wonderful.
Hmm.
But it's still there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. I have
definitely.
so many clients who are like, "Are you gonna make me run?" I'm like, "Oh my God, no,
Please
I
don't.
don't run."
Please
Like,
don't. Yeah. Let's
and
see your
we
cortisol
do
first.
right, and we do need cardio.
Yeah,
Humans
for
need
sure.
cardio for sure,
Yeah.
but also I am never going to ask you to run if you don't
No.
want to.
Yeah. It's, I've had clients who literally it's why they can't get pregnant. They're literally, their
Yeah.
cycle has been gone for months.
Yes.
But there's fear around it because again, we've been so conditioned. You have to do this to get this result when really that is one thing. And if you have everything else in alignment, you don't need to move to lose weight or keep it off. It's about using it for circulation and regulation and stress relief and pick things you love. Like you said, you hated your movement. I hated it too. And I'm like the drill sergeant. I'm like, you need to do 10 more reps. And someone's on the elliptical. It ruined my workout. It's ruined. Like my drill sergeant was such an asshole. And I'm just like, that's just spiking your cortisol even more. I remember getting stuck in my back alley one winter and I was so upset and I'm worked up about trying to get my car unstuck. It's like the middle of the night, -45. I'm like, why am I even out here trying to go to the gym? But just that asphyxiation with, I have to go, I have to burn calories. If I can't start my day off like this, the day is ruined. Right?
Mhm.
There's so many women in some form of a mentality like that with food or exercise or getting a certain amount of things off their list. And it just perpetuates all these other things that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's then you have the all or nothing
Hmm.
of, well, if I'm not gonna get to the gym, I'm not gonna do anything at all. And
Exactly.
and yeah, that perpetuates it even more.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you were working on breaking the cycle. So you were over exercising, your cortisol was the 2000s, and
Hmm.
you got to this place where you're like, I think I need to cut back on the exercise. And then the pounds started dropping.
Hmm.
So then what did you do next? What came after?
Yeah. So that was pretty much a year and a half of full blown rest, lots of napping. Then I actually got into my relationship with my husband. And so, all of a sudden, we're living together and it's like a co creation. My hormones start to balance. I have a lot more energy. I start getting a little more active again. And then we end up with really noisy neighbors that are abruptly waking us up multiple times through the night. And we had 4 rounds of that over 4 years. So I worked so hard to balance my hormones. And then literally a circumstance completely out of my control is disrupting my sleep for 4 years. So we actually moved a couple of years ago to resolve that. But then it was about really going, okay, if I'm in more of a phase where I can sleep better, then I'm going to be a bit more active. But I find my body personally, she likes more gentle movement. So I like walking, leisurely bike rides, a little bit of, moderate weightlifting. But my body also likes napping and she likes sitting out in the sunshine. And so, what I desire and what feels optimal for me is going to feel different for the next woman. But that's literally, it's I feel like I got everything balanced and then the whole noisy neighbor thing started. And so it was okay, a little more adrenal support again and these kinds of things. But the cool thing about the weight loss, because I really learned to love myself and treat myself with respect and accept myself, there was no longer any pressure that I have to diet or do amount of exercise to lose weight. And so that pressure, I feel like it took a huge weight off my nervous system and that also helped me get into a deeper state of regulation, which helped my body feel safe and keep the weight off. And that's what blew my mind. Wow, weight is a protective mechanism. My body's hanging on because she doesn't feel safe. There's all kinds of weight loss blocks, hormonal weight loss blocks, gut weight loss blocks, inflammation, negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, habits, behaviors. And that started to make me become more curious about talking to my body. Hey, body, why are you retaining more water this week? What's going on? How are you feeling? Why? an inner child. I'm like, wow, I have an inner child. She's upset about being bullied. When I was on the bus and I was 5, I got bullied, and the older boys called me ugly and fat, and then the whole bus made fun of me. I'm like, she's still upset. And I started to actually go in and do inner child healing and all these conversations with my body and my inner child, and starting to talk to my body and ask her what she needs and how she's feeling, all helped to regulate my system to a different level. And then I was able to just attain my weight. I just go by the way I feel. I go by the way my clothes fit, and my weight doesn't define me. But I've never, until I healed that, ever was able to maintain my weight. It was up or down 40, 50 pounds every other month for several years. And so that just felt so freeing to be like, if I help my body feel safe, I get to just enjoy life and live life and treat my body well, and I don't have to worry about that. And that was so freeing. Even though the sleep was off, I was terrified actually I was going to gain all the weight back again because the sleep was disrupted. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, my hormones were off before. What if that happens again and I gain the weight back? But I learned how to support my body in a way that even though that was happening, she stayed feeling safe. And I think that was just such a confidence booster to be like, wow, like if I tend to these different things and I keep my hormones in check and I take the right things, even if I can't do anything about that right now, like I have so much in my power and in my control that I can, honor my body and tend to my body. So, so that's, and then after that, I balanced my gut. That took a couple of years, few years. But those were kind of like the levels that, and then it was like healing attachment. Like I was terrified my husband was going to leave me, even though there's no reason to feel that way. But so there's like healing all these other like emotional things that started to come up because I was in a relationship. So those are like some of the next levels of healing over the previous years of the journey. So yeah, it's ever evolving.
I want to emphasize the word healing too, because our bodies are designed to heal,
Hmm.
and the things that you're talking about are actually moving you towards greater health. You're helping your
Yep.
clients move to greater health, and that means you'll be more resilient to
Hmm.
stressors. So, wacky neighbors who are screwing up your sleep because they're up all hours of the night, you're more resilient in the face of that than maybe you would
Hmm.
have been 10 years ago because
Yeah.
you're actually healing. You also mentioned using adrenal herbs, and so adaptogens help our bodies adapt to stress. And so I'm
Hmm.
actually curious. I love the language of helping my body feel safe. So I'm curious if you could share what herbs have you found are great for your body?
Yeah, so my body loves ashwagandha. She's like, I don't care how perfect your labs look and how good you feel. Give me ashwagandha every day.
Yes.
She's just like she's like a sponge with it. I love ashwagandha. Of course, like you said, and it's adaptogenic herb, and it really helps soothe the adrenals. It's also great for thyroid function. I love it, especially in a tincture form. The body just sucks it up so fast. So I love that. I also really love Siberian ginseng. I find it to be quite a soothing support. Before I knew anything about cortisol, and no wonder my cortisol's high, I was drinking licorice tea every day and taking a licorice supplement. And you shouldn't take that if your cortisol's too high. I like that if it's a bit low and we need a little bit of like a boost. I just wish they made licorice tea that didn't have that like cortisol inducing component because I like the taste of it. Maybe they have like a wouldn't be a caffeine free. I don't know how they would even extract it, but I just like the taste of licorice and spearmint together. But yeah, ashwagandha, Siberian ginseng were two of my favorites. And then B vitamins, I really like them for the anti-stress and the energy effects because I did notice that they helped bridge the gap with my energy levels and my mood when I was really tired. Oh, and holy basil. Oh my gosh.
Mm.
So grounding. It helped me have deeper meditations. I just felt so much more calm. Passion flower tincture, that has been something lately that I have been dabbling in a little bit that I really like too. So just very soothing, gentle, calming, which is what every woman needs a little more of, I feel like.
I'm also feeling like stinging nettles for you,
Mm-hmm.
like
Love
very
Mm.
that.
nourishing and just like so good, so soothing, so nourishing. Or maybe Avena sativa.
Yeah.
That's such a good trope. Milky oats is such a good trope and
Hmm.
restorative. And then
Mm.
your gut. So you balanced the gut. Do you have any favorite gut hacks?
Don't try to do a candida cleanse when you're in knee deep in binge and emotional eating, please, because it
Yeah.
can just trigger more of that. And please, I know it can be hard to want to open up to your current healthcare practitioner that you may be struggling with any level of that, but please be willing to have a conversation with them and at least let them know, because if they don't know that you're dealing with that, they're going to just put you on the regular protocol and get confused when you're not getting progress because you're secretively losing control and binging because the protocol is too restrictive and now your protocol is becoming a trigger, right? I think that education is huge as a side note. Really good probiotics. I'm all about slow and steady. So making sure my liver was really well supported and that my lymphatic system was draining properly was really important, and that I was pooping every day first, right? Because the first time I tried, I didn't know any of that. And I was just put on a bunch of stuff. I was actually working at a health clinic and I was trying to decide if I wanted to like get into this kind of industry and practice. And they told me all I could eat was chicken breast, green vegetables, and Brazil nuts, and put me on like 4 months worth of nystatin, like insane. But my detox organs weren't open and like my systems weren't functioning properly. I turned like yellow and like white, like my poor liver. I felt horrible. And obviously then it triggered binge eating. So I didn't do that again for a few more years. But yeah, so probiotics, lymphatic drainage, making sure your bowels are moving daily. Those things were all really important for me, and not feeling like you have to go super extreme with the protocol, being in a more balanced state with it. Like I don't cut out berries and things like that. It makes your cortisol high. You need some carbohydrates from fruits and veggies. So, and then I really like the homeopathic, like Unda remedies are so nice for candida and drainage. And I just find they're soothing. Like some people find they can, they do fine with like caprylic acid or grapefruit seed extract and things like that. But I love the Unda Candida remedies. They're homeopathics and they just go deeper energetically and physically. And I find you don't necessarily end up with like tender digestion or more pain or discomfort or I feel like I have a stomach ache, because some of the antifungals, even if you take them with food, can be kind of harsh. And then marshmallow root tea was like one of my best friends because it's so soothing. So it felt really nice with my gut when I was doing the protocol. And then I kind of just made my own up because I was like, I feel like this is not invasive, because so many of them can be invasive. So yeah, probiotics, marshmallow root tea, lymphatic drainage, liver support. Make
All
sure
of
you're
that.
pooping every day. Don't
Yeah.
do it if you're constipated. Get that sorted out first.
Yeah, well, and
Right?
I find a lot of times when I talk about liver support, people think that I'm talking about doing a really intense liver detox, and
Yeah.
not what I'm talking about
Mm-mm.
at
No, but
all.
I think that's a lot of that though. Like you think of what was that, like maybe the mid 2000s or like 2010 to 2014, the era of like juice cleansing and like liver
Yeah.
Yeah.
detoxing via juice cleansing. And then you can go to the store and buy a box of liver detox or candida cleanse, but it's a lot of it's too invasive and intensive. And then we feel really poorly and go, I don't ever want to do that again.
Hmm.
Slow and steady is the way. Do you want to, a really great way to stress your hormones really easily out? Doing too intensive of detoxification or doing it for too long. If it's
Hmm.
really
Yeah.
intense, it's a good way to spike your cortisol, potentially suppress your thyroid, drop your progesterone. Like I've seen it. So we need to be gentle is my approach anyway. I just really feel that women and our hormones and our bodies, like we're powerful and resilient, but gentle is the way.
Hmm. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
So
gentle.
good. Yeah.
So I know we're coming to the end, but I have three somewhat rapid fire questions for
Mm.
you. The first one is there's a big movement right now for high protein.
Mm.
Yes, no, or
Mm.
maybe.
Yes, but well, moderate to high protein with carbs and fat, not just high protein.
Mm.
Lovely. And then to sidebar that is there's also the carnivorous diet where people are just like eating all meat, all animal protein. Yes, no, or maybe.
No, unless it's an extreme circumstance where you have a serious chronic health issue that you need to temporarily do it to gain some relief.
Brilliant. And then intermittent fasting. Yes, no, or maybe.
In my practice, no.
That's what I was guessing you're gonna say.
Yeah,
And
not if you're
then
struggling with emotional binge eating. That's
And
not,
hormone issues. Yeah, I
yeah.
think there's a small amount of the female population that maybe at some point when you're in a healthy relationship with food and your body and your hormones, but Yeah, I've just never seen anyone that would be suited for.
Beautiful. And then the last one is labs, hormone testing, saliva, blood, urine, none of the above, or all of the above.
Like all of the above. The more information, the better. I mean, certain things like vitamins, minerals, inflammatory markers, blood is great. And then I think, depending on what people have access to, but urine and saliva are also great to have for more information and accuracy. But I'll take anything for starters, what I like. Right. And then we
Yeah,
can go from there. But yeah, everything.
I love it.
Mm.
Amazing. Any
Wow.
last questions that you have, Hads?
No, I think this was a jam-packed episode. I think our listeners are going to benefit so much from this. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yay.
truly.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you
glad.
so much for being here, Amber.
Oh, thank you for
And
having me.
they're gonna want to find you, so
Yeah.
and we'll have all your links in the show notes, and just let us know where your favorite places are to be found online.
Yeah. So the podcast is called the No Sugarcoating Podcast, which I'm so excited to host you ladies. I hope you're both coming, by the way.
Oh,
Oh,
Right?
amazing.
we'll have to get on
Yeah.
that. Yeah, Hads,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll make it happen. Yes, yes.
Cool. Okay, cool. The No Sugarcoating Podcast is on all podcast apps, and then it's also available on my website, which is amberapproved.ca. If you're wondering if you're struggling with emotional eating, I have a free quiz, and I also have a free 30-minute complimentary consultation you can book if you want to connect to talk about support. And there's some other free workshops and things there. And then I'm on social media, YouTube and Instagram, and it's my name at Amber Romaniuk, Romaniuk.
Yay, thanks, Amber. This was amazing. Everybody, please go give her a follow. Make sure to like and subscribe to her podcast. And if you love this episode, please give us a review in the form of encouragement and some happy words. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.